welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. Today we're talking about DC Danny Phantom crossover fiction called Like Facing Off Against Cthulhu, but it's really just your fears. A short summary, the summary and where you can read the fanfiction will be in the description. So, I mean, it's like that for all my other videos too, but just so aware of it. It starts off with, I mean, we're not like from Dick's perspective. We have no idea what's going on. We're just thrown into it, I feel like. But he's not even aware of it either because he's immediately ambushed. He's like, okay, I wasn't aware there are two new villains because it's Jack and Maddie, right? So they end up capturing him because at this point they're like off the rails crazy. So they end up capturing him and tying him down and then start vivisecting him. And then obviously he doesn't stay knocked out, so like he's awake when they're doing it. And then, this is like from Dick's point of view for a bit, is that, he hears like a kid clearly like calling him, like, and it's Danny. He's saying, "Oh, Phantom's here, like, oh, come quick." And so obviously they immediately rush out and, to go deal with Phantom. There isn't, but so Danny sneaks downstairs, and Dick's immediately first thought is like, "Oh, they have a kid." It's like, and his first thought was, "Oh no, what if he's like just as bad as the parents?" But then he's like, "No, it's not too late. Like, he's just a kid, so I could convince him to help him." Not that he needed convincing. Danny was immediately crying, like apologetic. He's like, "I am so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry this happened to you." So he immediately starts like, I'm so sorry, Mr. Nightwing, like this will hurt." So he's like stitching him up, and he's showing very clearly, like Dick is like noticing this, that he's very aware of what he's supposed to do, like medically, more aware than the average person, like as if he's had to do this like to himself, like stitching someone up, like, "Oh, you need this or that." It's like normal people don't really know this, but he gets him stitched up. He starts dragging him to the window, and it's like blood, and he's worried for Danny. Obviously, he's in no state to protect him, but he's worried. They're definitely going to notice that he's missing. And so he immediately, like, get him to the fire escape, and he immediately pushes them out. He's like, "I'll distract them. You go and call the others and get help, right? Like, I'll distract them to keep them from finding you." And Dick immediately wants to, protest, but he can't, like, because Danny already immediately closed the window and shut the blinds as, just as Jack and Maddie had returned. And, like, Dick, like, him hearing their voices immediately, it, like, he immediately, like, freezes. Like, he can't do anything. Not that he couldn't in the first place with how he is. So he literally has no choice because he wouldn't be helpful in that state. So he goes to the roof. He immediately turns off the comms, which he's like never doing again. Like, he turns it on, and he immediately tells the situation, right? Two new villains. I got vivisected. Need help. There's a kid, right? It's like they got a kid, and like it's terrified of what they're gonna do to Danny. So they get there, like, don't even worry about it, right? Then we switch to Bruce's point of view, right? This is when they do like some research on Danny and like the living situation, everything, right? Because that's his son that's now laying there out cold because he was like vivisected. Like, he's enraged, like everyone is. And they find very quickly that, Jack and Maddie, two kids, Jasmine and Danny. Jasmine is already off in college, and they can like see going through her sister's tree. She was already looking for apartments, because she's trying, like, she wants Danny with her, but living in college, like, it's expensive, so it's not really great. And so they like, "Oh, she must be really worried," and she is. And then we see the reason that they moved from Amity Park to Gotham was because he had a psychotic break in the middle of class before running out. And so, that's when CPS got like launched into investigation. Like, okay, something's not right here. But they fled. They immediately booked it before anything could be really done. Not that it really stopped them from investigating, and seeing in the house and seeing what everything was like, and it's like, oh, this isn't great. What is this, right? Definitely some mad scientists. So they they fled, and so now they're here. So Bruce sends in Jason to, because he's like, can't send in Damien at all. So he sends in Jason and Cass to go in, right? To trust them, and they're working with Gordon to get Danny out of the situation so he can't be hostage, and then get Bruce on speed dial for this adoption bait. And they get there, like peek through the blinds, they immediately see like Danny. He is like up against the wall. He has like this collar around his neck, and he's like disassociated. Like he's not even there in the room. Like he's not fighting. He's not anything. He's just disassociated, right? As his parents like are yelling at him, and like they're like holding on to him real tightly and waving around like what looks like a gun, which is probably like one of their Fenton guns, but still. And so they immediately bust in there, immediately take care of them, right? But Danny gets in front like before, like, because Jason's like pointing a gun at them. It's like, please don't. Like, they're just sick. Like they just need help because like and those are his parents. So why wouldn't he? Even after everything they've done, they are still his parents. And so they're just sick. They need help. So they take Danny, and like, so now Danny's at like the police station, and obviously Bruce is there. It's like, oh, like I'd like to adopt you, and Danny's immediately kind of suspected. Like he's like, you're sus, right? Rich older. Like, I don't know if I trust that, right? And he's looking at him. He's like, I have a godfather, Vlad, and I completely forgot about it at that point. But and Bruce says like, well, like, because he's not an option. He's not an option, right? He's like, you don't have to worry about it. It's like he's being investigated for tax evasion and other things, so you don't have to worry about that. Because obviously they did their research, like, as well when they were looking into everything, and like Vlad obviously was Godfather. But every time Danny would go with him, he'd come back with more bruises. This is a red flag. No, so he's out, not an option. So he's like, I would like to adopt you, and he's like, so Danny immediately kind of starts like setting like his boundaries. It's like, okay, well I want to lock my door. Okay, done. He's like, well, I don't want any like limitations on food. What? What does that mean? And he's like, okay, like Bruce has to keep it cool, but like, okay. He's like, okay. It's like, would you like a snack bar in your room? It's like, yes. Like, okay. He's like, I want to be able to leave whenever I can. Okay, that's completely fine. It's like, I want to be able to talk to my friends. We'll get you a phone. Completely fine. And so like he like tilts his head because super hearing, because he's like listening for his heartbeat to see if he's lying. And Bruce kind of immediately like catches on to this. He's like, he did it the same way as he was looking over the footage, the same way when he was like hovering over Dick and sewing him up. He was like listening to his heartbeat. So he immediately catches on to this. It's like, so he's clearly a meta. Okay, not gonna bring that up because clearly, because he's, which I mean, I guess he's not really wrong. It's just probably not the way he's thinking it, but he's thinking, okay, well, whatever powers he got probably was from his parents' experiments, which again, not wrong, just probably not the way he's thinking. But he's like, so I'm not gonna bring up that trauma or anything. He's like, unless powers go out of control or something, then like would be forced to. But other than that, no need to make him relive it. And so he's like, well, my heartbeat's not gonna, like, I'm not lying, so it'll be fine. Then he starts talking to Gordon, and he says for him to write it down to like not say anything because it's too hearing. And he's saying like, because they got him like a checkup, just a brief checkup. Heart rate too low. It's like he's cold as ice. Like he's kind of like he need like a checkup, like a real like go to a doctor like yesterday, basically. And so Bruce says it like out loud. He's like, well, if Danny's okay with it, we'll go whenever, because to him, he's like, he wants to make it clear to Danny, like, so he wants him to hear him, because he doubts his parents ever cared about that sort of thing. So meanwhile, that's going on, and like they're driving back. We go back to the house, right? This is where Duke's just woken up, and all he was told was like, it's bad, like Dick was hurt. So he's like, well, yeah, they get hurt all the time. So definitely. And then like, to see and like kind of hear what happened, it's like, yeah, um, got vivisected. It's like, oh, and so now he's learning situations. So they're all in what will be Danny's room. They're all setting it up. Jason's setting up a mini fridge. Duke's setting up the snack bar. They're all kind of setting up different things in his room. And it, like as Duke's thinking about it, like, wow, his parents, like, what kind of parents are these? Like, they're perfect for like Arkham. That's like they to go by. And then Tim comes in. He comes in with speakers, and Duke's kind of hesitant because he's like, what if he kind of thinks we're like listening or something? Which, because he's like, might traumatize him even more. I don't know how that would be the case, but it could happen. Like, after everything that he's heard, it'd be impossible. But it could happen. But Tim, insists like, oh, it's for white noise because he's got super hearing, so it's like one of them at least has to sleep. You know, and obviously that immediately is like, oh, how's that gonna work with all of them? Because like he's bound to overhear something, like one of them like talking about like, oh, like their vigilante shit. Like he's bound to overhear it. So it's like, how's that gonna work? And then we go to in the car with Dick and or not Dick, with Bruce and Danny. Bruce and like he's immediately like a little still wary of Bruce, but listening to his heartbeat, like he didn't seem like he was lying. So, but he doesn't completely trust him, and it's clear from the way like he's thinking. Danny takes this as like this is his fault, like his parents doing this and like doing that to Nightwing. Like he blames himself, even though it's like none of that was your fault. So, and Bruce, he's like, we'll have that conversation later because they end up talking for a bit. And he's like, we'll have that conversation later about how that's not true. But he does end up confessing like in the car because like, I mean, uh, he's bound over here and better him just kind of say it now before maybe like a misunderstanding happens, right? He says, oh yeah, like Batman, his son was Nightwing, like, so he says it all, right? Just out there in the open. And, that's why he's saying, like, it was my fault to begin with. Because Bruce was saying, well, you didn't have to, but you saved Dick. And he didn't expect anything in return. You didn't have to do that. He's like, it was my fault. Like, so as if he's, like, cleaning up his actions. Like, that wasn't, it's like, that's not even true. And Bruce was, like, so appalled with that. He, like, jerked the car. He was like, oh my God, what? He's like, but for now, like, you should probably call your sister. Because, like, she's been very sick. Because she heard about her parents getting arrested. She's like, family emergency, like, that type of thing. We go back to like Amity Park and we're with Sam. And Sam feels guilt over not being there for Danny, and like Tucker does too. And like as soon as it happened where they fled, right? Tucker just holds himself in the house, trying to find any trace of Danny, where they took him, where he could be, anything. Because clearly unstable, like what? But now it's time for revenge, right? And so all of Amity is like, a majority of them is like completely liminal. Like all of them, all of them are so like soaked in ectoplasm. It's over, right? So they end up like just starting a riot. Basically, they're like as like a distraction, of course. And Tucker and Sam end up dragging Vlad, Red is threatening him. Like Vlad's like instantly like terrified of them, so he goes along with it. And they end up breaking into the GIW like base and immediately taking down the firewall. Because Tim had tried earlier, but there was a firewall up, so he couldn't get into like seeing what Danny's old hometown and like what everything was, right? He got very minimal information. So Sam is taking it down, right? Because the GIW were the ones who put it up in the first place. So no contact with the outside world. And now all this information is suddenly coming out and exploding on the internet, and it's like, what the fuck is happening in Amity Park? And meanwhile, has like woken up, and they're bonding with Danny like in the cave, in the med bay, and Bruce is watching from the monitor, and then his phone just starts going off, and everyone like they're texting like, Bruce, so much shit's happening. As Tim's talking, he's like, so much is happening. I don't know what the fuck is happening. It's all now like there's so many like war crimes. It's a mess. Like experimentations. It's and he also Bruce looks over. He notices like the whole conversation like between Dick and like and Danny have like stopped because again he can kind of overhear it. And so this is when at this point Danny's been with them for a few days, but so he's a little bit more comfortable with them. Not completely, but still. And Bruce acknowledges this, and he doesn't want to break that trust or anything. So he ends up going over, to Danny. He's like, so a lot of things are coming out about your hometown. It's like, I'd advise you not to go on the internet. You don't, I mean, like, you can, but like, I wouldn't, with the media blackout, like, being down. And Danny's like, what blackout? It's like, Bruce is like, oh my God, there's no way. It's like, haven't you ever wondered why the Justice League, like, I don't know, never came to you? It's like, well, there was already a government, like, because, GIW posing as government, like, well, they're already there, like, so, and so Bruce was like, what the fuck? He's like, no. So this is why Danny has, like, no trust whatsoever. So he's like, do you, like, and so this is where the conversation of, like, kind of leads towards being meta, and how he finds out how Danny has no idea what that is. And it's like, oh, he's like, okay, well, let me explain this to you. It's like, so he's like, you and probably a majority of your town are all like fall under, that category and to be protected. You have rights and everything, so you won't be abused or discriminated against. And so he talks to Danny. He's like, would you like to, hear about the laws regarding it? Because it's like, it's clear that Danny has like, from him just saying like, so Sam and Tucker won't be taken. And he like cries in relief of that. And it's like, it's so clear that it's like, none of them have any idea about this because of the blackout. But because of that, Jason and Tim have taken like they're taking a plane. They're like, all right, let's go to Amity Park because a lot's happening, and it's a war zone. Jason immediately knows. He's like, oh my God, like Justice League already kind of there. It's a shit show, right? So much is happening. It evolved from a riot to an all-out war. That's going great, right? Because like the GIW are like they don't care anyway to begin with, right? They're just like kill everyone. So Jason immediately switches. Like, all right, well, time for lethal. Forget the non-rubber. It's not gonna work in this situation, right? And so he originally was gonna work from the shadows with the Justice League knowing, because it's like, just like they don't even know I'm here. But it's immediately scrapped when he gets like they get down there, and one of the ghosts, it's like, oh, my prince, like you're here. It's like, oh, immediately he was like, what the fuck are we talking about, right? It's like, how do you know I'm this prince that you're talking about? Like, kind of going with it. It's like, okay, well, how do you know I'm the prince you're talking about? It's like, you've bathed in the king's blood and survived. It's like, oh, okay. So Lazarus Pit is the ghost king's blood, and I guess if you bathe in it and survive, you're now the chosen prince, I guess. So now Jason's royalty. And he's like, and he's just taking us all, and he's like, all right, that sounds like for another time. Help, help round up the GIW and then like work with the Justice League. So he's off to tell all the other ghosts that, and he's like, what is happening? But now he can't stay in the shadow anymore because now he's gonna, lead the ghosts. Gotta give him the commands. Now it's just like, you gotta be front and center now. There's no going back. The whole thing takes about like a couple of months, so like that they're there, and so Jason finally gets back, and things have clearly changed because he's been like drenched in like ectoplasm this entire time, right? So things have clearly changed. He's like, because he's back in Gotham, he's seeing ghosts now. He sees a lot of them. Like he even sees a girl on the street crying out for mommy, like a head in her hand, and he's seeing a lot of people, like a lot of people, right? He's like, you know what? Not gonna look at any of them. Just gonna keep going. Except probably come back to the girl later. He's like, I'm the prince or something. It's like, I can do something about that now. It'll be fine. And so he ends up going, to the cave entrance, and he like, as he's like riding his motorcycle, and he ends up seeing something out of corner inside. and it's Ace. And he's like, oh my god, I haven't seen him since, well, he died. And so is Ace. And so Ace comes over him, he starts sniffing, like almost like checking him out, because like a guard dog. Like he's guarding, even though they can't see him, he's been guarding the entrance. And so it's clear because he's little like watery kind of looking, that he can only he can see him. And probably Danny, obviously, but like no one else can. And so Jason is like, well, I have to be able to do something about that, because there's no way. He's like, I want to be able to do more. And so he does end up having a moment with Ace, and he does end up transferring some of his ectoplasm, like extra ectoplasm, to him. And so now he can be seen. And so he ends up, instead of riding back on his motorcycle through the tunnel, he ends up walking beside it. So he's walking with Ace as he goes back into the cave. And then we cut to Bruce, who was clearly crying because he was not prepared to see Ace, who had died earlier. He wasn't prepared to see him. And now he's like, completely, I mean, he's dead. But like now he's like, nothing can harm him now. So he's like a perfect dog for this weird little family. And he's going over files that, Jason had gotten him. And he goes over like, oh yeah, these two kids and this older dude who was clearly terrified of them had just given him them. Like, just, here, take it. Okay. And he's going over like the list of things that clearly happened. And he's like, ooh, none of them are great, right? And it turned out the GIW government branch, no, they're not. They were funded by League of Assassins, because of course Roz wanted to learn everything about the Lazarus Pits, wanted to know everything, or ectoplasm. He wanted to know everything about them. Of course he did. How do you make a weapon from it? How can you further, so of course he's funding this for it. And obviously Roz is already like a wanted man to people who already, knew him, so it's like, it's not much they can do at all, in fact. So they're just kind of, like it's over for the moment, but there's not much they can do, He's already wanted man, done a lot worse than this, which is sad to say. So a lot's kind of happened. We have a moment with like Dick and Danny too, where they're like training. Well, it's not really training, but it's more getting Danny used to using his powers again, right? Because he's been so traumatized that he like can't turn into Phantom anymore. And so he just kind of stays in his human form. But they're both, Dick's in a wheelchair now, like recovering, and Danny is like, because again, months have passed, is also still recovering. More mentally, of course. But he's been so traumatized that he can't even really transform into Phantom anymore, like at all. Like, and this is like the furthest that he's gotten, even though he's still frustrated with himself. Is that the ring appears. And it only appeared for like a few seconds before it disappeared, because he got terrified, because he's remembering like, Jack and Maddie standing over him and just everything that came with it. And so it made him terrified. So he just can't bring up like to do it anymore. But him and Dick have heart to heart, where they're, it's like it's one step at a time. Like, you're still recovering. Like, it's not really anything to beat yourself up over. And so Danny, finally calms down, and he's thinking about all the good memories that he had, like when, like with Phantom, and how he wants to reclaim that, like he wants that back. And so he finally is able to transform. He also ends up pulling on bonds, specifically with Ellie and Dan, who I had no idea were going to be brought up into this. But they're all the way like 4 planets away. Like, what? They're like, I don't know how, like on a different planet. And they were told to stay off planet for a little bit, right? By clockwork. Because things were going a bit, sideways. And so, and not to return until later. But obviously, now that Danny is transformed, he's pulling on those bonds because he wants to reclaim that. He wants that feeling back. They're like, well, now we can return. This is great. Everything's kind of like resolved. And so, like, let's go. And like something clearly happened where they were both being menaces. And so one of them is clearly approved by the Green Lantern Corps, and not the other. So one of them is clearly more of a menace than the other. But they still So they end up making the trip back to Earth to see their brother again. And that's kind of where all of it ends. It is 4 chapters, so it like short, at least to me, because I can binge read anything. So it is pretty short though, but that's where it ends. Still recommend, obviously, like a really good read. Anyway, that's all the time I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!